Introduction to the Headmaster's Journey. The sect was destroyed, and Lu Qian was appointed to take over as the head in the face of danger, putting a lot of pressure on him. There are no tiles covering the upper part, no spiritual veins standing at the lower part, no place to go in front, and pursuers behind. The situation is deteriorating. How can we turn the tide? In this world of the jungle, Lu Qian made every effort and embarked on a journey of entrepreneurship from scratch. After his small sect gradually embarked on the path of dominance, Lu Qian suddenly realized that he had written a dreamlike and magnificent page in the history of the cultivation world. Chapter 1. Leader Lu Qian. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Junior brother, it's time to take the medicine. Junior brother. The hurried female voice awakened Lu Qian. Slowly open your eyes, your consciousness gradually wakes up from the chaos, and the scenery in front of you also gradually becomes clear. In front of her was a young woman with a beautiful appearance, about 20 years old. Even her disheveled hair and dust on her face could not conceal her beauty. At this moment, she was holding a porcelain bowl and looking at herself with a complex expression. The sense of smell and touch gradually recovered, and Lu Qian smelled a bitter medicinal taste. In an instant, he felt immense pain on his body and tried to lower his head to look at his chest. A few large pieces of fabric were haphazardly wrapped up there, and a shocking blood stain almost covered his entire chest. Blood. In that moment, a thin film seemed to have been pierced through his mind, and memories surged like a tide. Lu Qian suddenly widened his eyes. Yunshan sect's Lu Qian, who has been in the sect for 4 years, is a disciple in charge. He has practiced 5 layers of qi and has dual spiritual roots of gold and water. Modern person Lu Qian, working for 15 years, is a corporate executive who has a house, a car, and savings. The spiritual spring suddenly discovered on Yunshan, the anti-water ally, the crazy enemy, the blood-stained mountain gate of the Marshall brothers, and the weak Yunshan sect withering like fallen leaves overnight. In addition to dedicating oneself to work, the life of a social animal has been full of twists and turns. How many times have we pushed glasses and changed tables? How many times have we been content with our work? How many times have we been able to handle all sorts of intrigues and trivial matters, and finally stepped onto the leadership position of a large enterprise? The 2 lives of 2 worlds overlap in an instant, like 2 cups of clear water poured together, perfectly blending and not distinguishing each other. Am I Lu Qian? I am Lu Qian. After a group of fellow disciples died in battle, the dying leader handed me the leader's ring. From now on, you will be the 4th generation leader of the Yunshan sect. Hurry up. Lu Qian, who was staring blankly at the medicine bowl, clearly caused a misunderstanding among the woman. She snorted angrily and threw the bowl heavily onto the table, splashing out even the medicine. There's no poison in here. You don't have to be so wary of me. If I wanted to harm you, I would have left you long ago. Master. It's really ridiculous. After speaking, she turned her head and left, banging the wooden door of the cabin with a loud bang. Senior Sister Qingfeng. Lu Qian exclaimed, struggling to stand up, but his wound was painful as soon as he moved, so he had to give up. He sighed and took a sip from the medicine bowl, feeling extremely bitter and difficult to swallow. He simply put down the bowl and closed his eyes in contemplation. In an instant, my mind was spinning and various thoughts flashed through. In the leader's ring of the Yunshan sect, there is a secret collection of the sect's inheritance over the past 300 years. Therefore, the dog hybrids of the Ziyang Wang family and Ziluo Mountain did not relax and chased after them with their tails. On the way to escape, the newly appointed leader himself gave orders and did many foolish things, causing the escape team to fall apart. No wonder senior sister Jiang Qingfeng treated herself so well. Now that they are seriously injured and have run out of healing pills along the way, several people have to find a small wooden house for hunters to rest in the deep forest. Jiang Qingfeng, still reminiscing about his fellow disciples, collected herbs to boil and heal his wounds. Enemy's sphere of influence. Enemy's pursuit strength, waves, dispersion. Current course of action, location and time of last attack. Our own speed of action, physical condition, weapons and materials possessed. Never stop here, even if the injury worsens, you must continue to depart. Only by completely running out of Qian County can you temporarily relax. In an instant, a conclusion came to mind. Ha! Lu Qian opened his eyes in surprise. It seems that as soon as the command to think is given, the brain runs rapidly, and the pieces of information and various memories obtained along the way are as clear as knives and axes. Various conditions are instantly listed in consciousness, and conclusions are drawn in an instant through judgment, combination, and reasoning. What's going on? How do you feel that your thinking is several times faster than before? In the midst of suspicion, a wooden door creaked, revealing a small crack. A pink-carved jade-carved little girl with bright eyes was peeking into the crack. Tao Tao, come over quickly. Lu Qian waved. The little girl hesitated a bit. She opened the door wider but hadn't entered yet, because the brother lying in bed inside was a bit scary and kept cursing all the way. After hesitating for a moment, she looked at Lu Qian's smiling face before timidly speaking, I'm in, don't scold me. Don't curse, whoever curses is the puppy. With assurance, the little girl finally mustered up her courage and walked to the bedside, trying to make a serious expression. Master, you must not bully my sister. My sister is so angry and crying. She is Jiang Qingfeng's younger sister, named Jiang Baitao, who has just turned 6 years old. Previously, it was found that she had a spiritual root, so Jiang Qingfeng introduced her into the sect. Unfortunately, as soon as she entered, the sect suffered this calamity. Fortunately, the little girl was small and lightweight, and it was effortless to fly with her. She was lively and lovely, and everyone liked her very much. She was protected all the way and escaped. Lu Qian, Jiang Qingfeng, and Jiang Baitao are the only remaining members of this escape team. With a deep sigh in his heart, Lu Qian reached out to touch Jiang Baitao's head and said gently, No, I didn't do it right before. Can you help me apologize to my sister and let's hurry, okay? Under the shade of the tree outside, Jiang Qingfeng was leaning against the trunk in a daze. She remembered the joy and peace of the past sex, as well as the various grievances on the road now. She couldn't help but feel sad and shed tears. She was already benevolent and righteous, but Lu Qian still didn't appreciate it. Along the way, she truly saw through this so-called leader. He is tall and thin, with a handsome appearance, especially a pair of sword eyebrows that fly diagonally into his temples, exuding a heroic aura, but to his surprise, he is a clumsy guy inside. He looked down upon no one and held himself high. Although everyone had become homeless dogs and should have huddled together to keep warm, Lu Qian was cold and domineering towards others, causing them to lose heart long ago. Self-interested and petty, he held on to the remaining pills and talismans on the way. If anyone had offended him before, he wouldn't have been able to obtain any emergency supplies. He used it recklessly again, and now everything is clean. Acting foolishly, jealous of the wise and capable, after facing major changes, like a headless fly, unable to even plan the escape route well. It was only with the help of several older colleagues who managed to break through with some planning and advice. Lu Qian not only did not appreciate the help from these colleagues, but also regarded it as a desire to seize power, and was more cautious in his words and actions. Is such a person also worthy of being a leader? If it weren't for the loss of the elite members of the sect in one fell swoop, he would be the only remaining disciple of the sect leader. The sect leader would have admired his talent for dual spiritual roots, so how could he be appointed as the sect leader? It's okay. It's okay. Mud can't support the wall, so throw him here and I'll take Peach Blossom with me. Fortunately, after the team dispersed, the pursuers also dispersed and decreased. Now, my position is not far from the border of Qian County. Thinking of this, Jiang Qingfeng stood up angrily, wiped his face randomly, and then went to search for Jiang Baitao. Suddenly, behind him, there was a chaotic sound of branches, and a yellow talisman shot out towards Jiang Qingfeng. Edict. With a loud roar, Huang Fu exploded into a ball of fire, engulfing Jiang Qingfeng's figure. Ha! It's done. Two men's figures flashed through the bushes. The young Taoist among them was pinching the Dharma formula and feeling proud. But as the flames dimmed, a jade pendant hung in front of Jiang Qingfeng, with a shimmering blue light protecting her. Defensive magic weapon. Another middle-aged man looked greedy. I've made a lot of money this time. As he spoke, he drew the magic spell in his hand, choked with a clatter, and flew his sword out of its sheath behind him, cutting towards Jiang Qingfeng. The young Taoist became anxious and said, "This is mine. Do you dare to compete with me?" This was also a spell-casting technique, using a flying sword to attack. Jiang Qingfeng is a cultivator with 6 levels of Qi cultivation. In the middle stage of Qi cultivation, a cultivator has not long entered the realm of expelling objects and cannot use 2 magical tools at the same time. Now it's too late to change the spell, so I can only watch as 2 white rays strike fiercely on the jade pendant mask. She let out a scream and her body was knocked up, hitting the trunk heavily and coughing up a mouthful of blood. The jade pendant also faded from its radiance and fell in front of her with a click. Chapter 2. Righteousness and Wisdom. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As the middle-aged man was about to move forward, he heard the young Taoist shout, "Li Qian, do you, a cultivator with a different surname, dare to rob me of my belongings? Do you still want to hang out in our Wang family?" Li Qian's face flashed with anger, but he finally stopped and said, "Here you are, junior brother Wang Shou." Wang Shou snorted coldly, wielding his flying sword and about to slay Jiang Qingfeng. "Kill this little girl's skin, everything on her body belongs to me." Jiang Qingfeng fell to the ground in despair, and she remembered the young Bai Tao, struggling and trying to stand up. "I will die today. But there is a small window on the other side of the wooden house. May I delay some more time so that Tao Tao can escape? It's all my fault for not having the vision to follow such an incompetent leader. If I had left him earlier, viewers." Suddenly, there was a loud shout, and an object flew out of the air and attacked Wang Shou. Wang Shou hurriedly turned his long sword, cut out a half circle, and struck towards the objects in the air. With a crisp sound, a porcelain bowl was shattered in mid-air, and the black and brown medicinal liquid inside splashed out, pouring water on both Wang and Li's faces. "Bastard!" The two of them were furious and looked towards the direction of the porcelain bowl flying towards them. They saw a young man sitting there leaning against the wooden door, with a mocking expression on his face. "Lu Qian!" Jiang Qingfeng exclaimed in surprise. Lu Qian sat back hard, his face pale, and he covered his chest with one hand. In his fingertips, a thread of blood was seeping out. He nodded at Jiang Qingfeng and said in a deep voice, "Senior sister, I'm here to save you. I'll kill you." Wang Shou roared angrily and was about to charge forward. Li Qian exclaimed in surprise, "Wait. He's Lu Qian. He's the new leader of the Yunshan sect." Wang Shou widened his eyes and recognized the image from his memory, feeling ecstatic. "Wow! Wow! It's my turn to soar to fame. I never expected to catch such a big fish today." Li Sanyu raised his flying sword and reminded, "Be careful, maybe he has some powerful magical weapon on him." "Look at him like that, I can poke him with just one finger," Wang Shou said disdainfully, but he also stood still and reached out to take out a messenger talisman. "If I were you, I wouldn't have used this message symbol," Lu Qian suddenly spoke up. "I have a secret treasure of the Yunshan sect that has been around for 300 years. Are you sure you want to notify someone to come and share a share of the pie? Secret collection. Secret collection." Upon hearing these 2 words, Wang Shou and Li Qian's breath froze, and they involuntarily stared at Lu Qian. "Where is the secret hidden?" Wang Shou shouted sternly. Lu Qian slowly moved away from his hand that was covering his chest, and a pool of blood slowly seeped out, which was shocking. I am seriously injured and it is difficult for me to move. My senior sister is also of low skill, so she is not a match for the two of us no matter what. So, I want to make a condition. Exchange the secret treasure of the Yunshan sect for our lives. How about that? Jiang Qinfeng stared blankly at Lu Qian, feeling that the young master suddenly became unfamiliar. If we kill you, we can also obtain the secret. Who doesn't know, the secret is inside the Cloud Mountain leader's ring, said Li Can. Not bad, but the ring has already been hidden by me. Lu Qian showed his empty hands. Of course you can kill me and slowly search for it, but are you sure that there won't be more people coming over during this process? In front of everyone, if you find the secret, you can only hand it over to the family. How can you swallow it? Lu Qian smiled and slowly shook his fingers, saying, what's inside the secret? I'll tell you, there are mountains of spiritual stones and pills, Yunshan sect secret scriptures that lead directly to the Golden Dan Avenue, spiritual tools from past sect leaders, and even magic treasures. As long as you get them, even if you leave the Wang family, it won't be difficult to establish your own sect. Every time they heard something, the two of them felt their hearts skip a beat, their eyes sparkle with golden light, their mouths dry and their tongues tight, and even sweat broke out from their hands. The two of them were just cultivators in the middle stage of Qi cultivation, with hundreds of spiritual stones on hand that were already towering. Now that Baoshan is within reach, they feel like their bodies are about to soar. Okay, Wang Shou let out a dry voice. I agreed, you give me the ring, and I'll spare your lives. Words have no basis, how can I trust you? Li Can hurriedly said, we can swear. Swear to Dao Xian. If we violate it, every time we break through, Dao Xian will backfire and we will never make any progress in our lifetime. Very good. Lu Qian nodded and the two of them quickly stretched their necks, their faces flushed, waiting for Lu Qian to find the ring. But Lu Qian suddenly smiled and said, but, do you have two people? There is only one ring, who should I give it to? There was a sudden silence in the field, and the needle could be heard falling. Of course it's me. Wang Shou took a step forward and glared fiercely at Li Can, you're a cultivator with a different surname, don't try to argue with me. When I get the treasure, I will naturally reward you. Li Can's eyes were red, he gritted his teeth, didn't speak, and even his cheeks bulged. How good would it be if there was only one of you? Lu Qian's voice whispered, think about it, one person can own the entire treasure on their own, but now they have to split it between two people. If it were me, I would really have to be careful. What if someone stabbed me during the split? What if someone violates the rules and reports to the Wang family afterwards? Both of them breathed heavily at the same time. The atmosphere is clearly different. Jiang Qinfeng looked at all of this with a shocked expression on his face. Just now, Li Can's gaze would still linger on him, clearly wary of one hand. Now, the two of them slowly shifted their bodies, their fingers quietly gripping the magic formula, their chi machines piercing each other, and their eyes locking onto each other. Her incredulous gaze once again fell on the head junior brother. He just sat there leaning back, dragging his severely injured body, his face pale like paper, but he was holding on to a wisdom pearl. However, with just a few words, he had already mastered the initiative on the field. Zhaozhuyuan.com. Suddenly, Lu Qianchong waved her hand in a subtle and imperceptible manner. Junior brother, Li Can suddenly said in a bitter voice, don't fall for his trap. We can't fight against each other now. Here's the ring for you. As long as you swear with a righteous heart, you will divide me by 30%. I can also swear not to argue too much and never report any secrets. Not good. Jiang Qinfeng became nervous again. Wang Shou felt his face burning, and he stared at Li Can intently, squeezing words from between his teeth. Okay. At this moment, Lu Qian suddenly pointed behind them and shouted, what kind of person? The two suddenly turned around and saw a blurry figure hiding among the heavy tree shadows behind them. Under high tension, the two of them let out a shout and activated the already pinched magic formula. The two flying swords thrust towards the figure together. Right now. At the moment when the flying sword left their side, Lu Qian shouted loudly, "Take action." Sword rises again, carrying the sound of wind and thunder. With a thud, a flying sword shot out from the gap in the wooden door and beheaded Wang Shou, controlled by Lu Qian. A pearl hairpin rose from the ground and shot through Li Can's chest. It was the fallen Jiang Qingfeng. You. Li Can spurted out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. His regretful gaze fell on the blurry figure in the distance. At this moment, the figure had already been stabbed by two flying swords, only a bundle of branches wrapped in clothes. The next moment, a little girl emerged from the bushes. Tao Tao. Jiang Qingfeng exclaimed joyfully. Jiang Baitao exclaimed, "Master brother." Lu Qian forced a smile at her, and a large amount of blood burst out from his chest wound. He felt black in front of him, and his body fell heavily, only having time to say the last two words. Destroy the corpse. Chapter 3. Reorganization. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When he woke up again, Lu Qian felt the soft bedding under his body. His consciousness regained clarity, and the last memory in his mind startled him. He sat up suddenly, only to see that his chest had been replaced with clean gauze, and the pain had also decreased significantly. When I reached out and touched it, the palm ring was still firmly tied to my waist and did not fall off. A series of actions startled the little girl lying by the bed. Jiang Baitao rubbed her eyes and murmured vaguely. Her gaze slowly focused on Lu Qian before suddenly exclaiming in surprise, "Brother leader, wake up. Brother leader, wake up." The little girl jumped up, shouting and running towards the door. Lu Qian felt relieved in his heart. Judging from her appearance, he should have arrived at a safe place now. He looked around at the environment, with carved beds, wooden desks, hangers, and simple and tidy furnishings that looked like they were in an inn. He tried to move his body again and felt that his injuries had healed a lot. At least the terrible wound on his chest was no longer bleeding. At this moment, Jiang Baitao pulled a beautiful shadow and stepped into the door. The eyes of the two met, and Jiang Qingfeng was both delighted and embarrassed. The arrogance and incompetence on the escape road suddenly overlapped with the calmness and agility in front of the wooden house, converging into the smiling young man in front of her. She suddenly became speechless and didn't know what to say. "Senior Sister Qingfeng." Lu Qian broke the silence first, "Thank you for saving me." Jiang Qingfeng hesitated for a moment and was about to speak when Jiang Baitao happily smiled and leaned against Lu Qian's bed, saying, "Master, why don't you thank me? I've done everything you said. Tao Tao has been very helpful, hasn't she?" Lu Qian rubbed her little head and said, "Yes, Tao Tao is really amazing. That dummy you pricked is really good. You deceived those two big villains and saved your brother and sister." Jiang Baitao proudly straightened her chest and said with a lively expression, "That's it. I'm really good at pinching mud and making small people. Zhang Goer from the village competed with me to pinch mud people, and I pinched 3 in one go. But later, when the water ran out, Zhang Goer played tricks and pinched one more than me with the water he used." As she spoke, the little girl looked down and said, "Unfortunately, I can't shush it out, otherwise." Tao Tao. Jiang Qingfeng blushed, feeling both embarrassed and angry. He grabbed Jiang Baitao and wanted to cover her mouth. Jiang Baitao shouted for help, laughed and screamed, all at once drilling into Lu Qian's arms. The few people were in a mess, and the estrangement just now suddenly faded a lot. Jiang Qingfeng used a lot of strength and finally pulled Baitao in front of him. After a moment of silence, Lu Qian asked, "Senior sister, what happened later? Where are we now?" Jiang Qingfeng held the white peach in his arms and slowly spoke. Originally, after Lu Qian fell into a coma, Jiang Qingfeng searched the bodies of the two people, found some healing pills, and gave them to Lu Qian to take, finally stabilizing the injuries. Then he buried the body and tried to cover up the traces, taking Lu Qian and Bai Tao to hide and seek in the forest. They finally escaped from the border of Ziyang County without any danger and entered Haishifeng City in Nujiang County, where they found a temporary inn to stay. In the past few days, Qingfeng has been living in seclusion and has bought many pills for Lu Qian. With careful care, Lu Qian's injuries have finally slowly recovered and he has regained consciousness from his coma. Lu Qian nodded and his memories of Haishifeng City began to flip like cards in his mind, organizing them into pieces of information. This Haishifeng City is a medium-sized city on the border of Nujiang County, jointly controlled by several nearby sections. A foundation building feathered warrior sits here year-round. Private fights are strictly prohibited within the city, fully ensuring the safety of monks who come and go. There is a foundation building feathered scholar in the Wangjia and Ziluo mountains of Ziyang, each of which is only a small sect and can only occupy a corner of Ziyang County. Their influence has not extended to this area, so it is impossible to conduct a large-scale search here. There are nearly 1,000 cultivators in this city, and there are more than 10,000 ordinary people attached to them, with a mix of 3 religions and 9 streams, and fish and dragons. As long as we are careful not to reveal our names and cover up our faces, we can protect ourselves from danger. Listening to Lu Qian's chatter, Jiang Qingfeng clenched his delicate palm. She was hesitating in her heart and thought about it for a long time along the way. Previously, Lu Qian's careless performance disappointed her to the extreme, but now it has given her some sense of reliability. Do you want to leave? Take peaches and become a casual cultivator. She opened her mouth but couldn't say anything. Looking at Jiang Qingfeng's expression, Lu Qian's heart was already clear. He lifted the blanket, got off the bed, restrained himself, and bowed deeply to Jiang Qingfeng. Senior sister, I have done many foolish things along the way, let down the high expectations of the headmaster, let down a group of senior brothers, and I also know that my crimes are deep. Everyone has abandoned me, and I am truly blaming myself. No one can blame me. Fortunately, senior sister doesn't remember any wrongdoing and helped each other along the way. If it weren't for senior sister and Peach Blossom, even if I had 10 lives, I wouldn't have escaped to heaven. I deeply appreciate senior sister's kindness, and I will definitely repay it with all my strength in the future, not to disappoint her kindness. Lu Qian's words were extremely sincere, and Jiang Qingfeng felt a warmth in her heart. She quickly reached out to help, and then heard Lu Qian say, I remember when I first started, it was my senior sister who took me through the mountain gate and taught me many rules of the sect. At that time, senior sister's clothes were fluttering, her stockings were dusty, like a fairy-like person. I also heard from my master that senior sister valued emotions and righteousness, was intelligent and resolute, and I admired her deeply. This statement seemed somewhat ambiguous. Jiang Qingfeng's face was a bit hot, but when he looked closely, Lu Qian's expression was serious, his gaze clear, and he had no evil intentions. She was more overjoyed than embarrassed in her heart, even though she tried to suppress it, a smile still appeared on her face. Junior brother, when did you become so smooth-tongued? There is no empty words. Looking for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, Lu Qian stood up straight and looked into Jiang Qingfeng's eyes. Senior sister, now that the sect has withered, only the 3 of us are left to rely on each other. I hope senior sister can forgive past grievances, support each other, and there will be a day when the sea and sky are vast. In an instant, Jiang Qingfeng seemed to return to the forest and saw the young man sitting against the wooden door nodding towards him, firmly saying, Senior sister, I'm here to save you. With a sigh in my heart, the sentence of leaving eventually dissipated. Jiang Qingfeng held Bai Tao's hand and asked seriously, so what should we do next? Lu Qian sat by the edge of the bed, sensing his rapid thinking, but he didn't have time to delve deeper. Now we have 3 paths. One is to give up our identity as the Yunshan sect and live a life of seclusion and cultivation. The other is to give up our identity, change our face, and join another sect. The third is to heal our wounds, continue to retreat, and wander between various sects to seek survival, finding a spiritual vein in order to make a comeback. What is Junior Brother's idea? My thoughts. The memories of the modern workplace have never been as clear as they are now. Those pains, grievances, confusion, and struggles ultimately stem from the screams and burning ambitions engraved deep in one's soul, unwilling to be left behind. Lu Qian raised his head, but his sword eyebrows were raised and his gaze was electrified. I have been appointed as the leader in the face of danger, and I must not let the 300 years of inheritance of Yunshan be cut off in my hands. From now on, I will do my best and dedicate myself to the glory of the sect, vowing to avenge the deep blood and sea. One day, my soul will return to the earth, and when I see all the teachers, I can also say a clear conscience. Please help me, senior sister. Jiang Qingfeng took a deep breath, stood up straight, arched his hand and saluted. I will obey you, junior brother. No, master. Chapter 4. The Path of Cultivation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the blink of an eye, it was already evening. Lu Qian invited Jiang Qingfeng to buy some things to cover his face, such as hats, veils, etc. Once ready, he changed the inn and moved to the center of the neighborhood. After all, when checking into this place, Jiang Qingfeng, with his unconscious self and Tao Tao, was somewhat eye-catching, so it was better to be careful. And Lu Qian took the healing pill and sat cross-legged on the bed, using his energy to regulate his breath. It was both healing and cultivation. The Hidden Cloud Classic is a cultivation technique developed by Lu Qian and is also a major inheritance technique of the Cloud Mountain sect. The cultivation method during the Qi cultivation period consists of 10 layers, which happens to be completed from the first layer of Qi cultivation. In the cultivation method, it is peaceful and gradual, which is indeed good for solidifying the foundation. Lu Qian calmed his mind and entered a state of emptiness, absorbing spiritual energy from his body and carrying the heavens along the 5th layer of his body. The spiritual energy in the air was quickly sucked in from his acupoints and brought into the spiritual roots of the dantian. The spiritual root, which shimmered with golden and black light and was 5 inches long, bloomed with a single light. It sucked in spiritual energy and transformed into unstable spiritual power, which was then pulled by Lu Qian's divine consciousness. It ran through the body for a whole week, then turned into pure spiritual power and washed onto the spiritual root, stabilizing it in the elixir field. This time and again, those colored spiritual roots shine even more brightly. Dantian cultivates spiritual roots to cultivate qi. Spiritual roots grow spiritual stamens to build foundations. The spiritual core turns into a spiritual fruit, and once you overcome the calamity of heaven, the melon ripens and the branches fall. It is the golden pill. Jindan, Jindan. My body and destiny are aligned with the heavens, and only the golden elixir can be lost. Spiritual beings come to reside in the Jade Palace, and the holy birthday steps up the cloud ladder. Jindan immortal, the existence that many people look up to. For Lu Qian, who is currently practicing 5 levels of qi, it is still an unattainable dream. But his spiritual roots have dual attributes of gold and water, known as the dual spiritual roots of gold and water. The spiritual energy absorbed is relatively pure, rarely interfering with each other, and his cultivation speed is fast. People in the world have spiritual roots and can become cultivators, 1 in a million. Among them, those with a single attribute of spiritual roots are called single spiritual roots, those with a dual attribute are called double spiritual roots, and so on. The fewer spiritual root attributes, the purer the absorption of spiritual energy, and the faster the cultivation speed. Therefore, the single spiritual root, also known as the heavenly spiritual root, can be practiced at lightning speed. Even among 10,000 cultivators, it may not be possible to produce one. The longer the length of the spiritual root, the stronger it is, and the more spiritual power it can transform and store. The ultimate genius among them has a spiritual root length of 6 inches. A 6-inch spiritual root can convert and store twice as much spiritual power as a regular 3-inch spiritual root. Lu Qian's spiritual root is 5 inches long, not unparalleled, but also rare. At this moment, his mind and breath are interdependent, and he is fully utilizing his mind techniques. After an hour or 9 weeks, he feels that his spiritual power is full. With the help of the pill, the injuries on my body have been alleviated a bit, and I am now walking smoothly. It is estimated that in another 3 to 5 days, I will be fully recovered. Lu Qian opened his eyes, and outside the window, the sky was already dark. Lights were lit up in the neighborhood. I wonder if senior sister has returned. If one can rely on the spiritual veins within the sect and cultivate their own golden water spiritual roots for more than 10 years, they should be able to achieve complete qi cultivation. And senior sister Qingfeng and Tao Tao, both of them have 3 spiritual roots. With spiritual veins, they still need to work hard for 20.30 years to succeed. Fortunately, everyone's qualifications are not bad. You should know that the 5 spiritual roots are known as pseudo-spiritual roots, and they can be cultivated up to the middle stage of qi cultivation throughout their lifetime. The 4 spiritual roots, also known as the residual spiritual roots, are difficult to break through and build a foundation for a lifetime without any affinity. Cultivation emphasizes the completeness of methods, land, partners, and wealth. Currently, there is no shortage of cultivation methods. The top priority is to find a treasure land with spiritual veins as soon as possible. But the cultivation world has developed for 20,000 years, with cultivators covering the world and various sects dividing every corner of the continent. It is extremely difficult to find an unowned spiritual vein. What should we do? While contemplating, Jiang Qingfeng suddenly heard the door of the room lightly knock. He whispered, "Master, I'm back." Lu Qian quickly turned over and got up, opened the door, and welcomed Jiang Qingfeng in. He said seriously, "Senior sister, there's no need to call me the leader now. Firstly, only the 3 of us rely on each other, so there's no need to be so divided. Secondly, it's too ostentatious and easy to attract attention." Jiang Qingfeng didn't insist either, nodding with a smile. Suddenly, a ferocious ghost face popped out from behind Qingfeng, and with a loud cry, Lu Qian was frightened to the point of shock. Before the ghost face could move any further, Jiang Qingfeng slapped it on the forehead and angrily exclaimed, "Peach peach." The prank was successful, and Jiang Baitao pulled off her ghost face mask, revealing a mischievous smile. Lu Qian chuckled and said, "Tao Tao, where did you buy your mask?" Tao Tao happily held up her mask. Before she could show off, Qingfeng pulled her back to her side and took out several white items from her storage bag, handing them to Lu Qian. Lu Qian shook his hand and stretched out one of them. This is an extremely thin and soft semi-transparent mask. A human skin mask. Lu Qian, she said, "Where did this thing come from?" Jiang Qingfeng smiled and said, "It seems that my junior brother, like me, rarely goes out for training on weekdays. It turns out that these transformed props can be seen everywhere in this city. I just saw that there are many scattered cultivators here, and many people wear masks to cover them up." Lu Qian nodded and walked up to the bronze mirror. He adjusted his facial features and put a human skin mask on his face. He reached out to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com to smooth out the wrinkles, then patted and kneaded, adjusting the details slightly. A strange face appeared in the mirror. He was originally in his twilight years, but this mask looked like a man in his 30s. Jiang Qingfeng also put on a mask and suddenly became an ordinary-looking neighbor girl. Tao Tao is too young to find a suitable one. Originally, her boss was unhappy, so Qingfeng used the excuse, "Adults wear big masks, children wear small masks," to coax her and bought her several toy masks with different patterns. She loves this ghost face the most. This human skin mask is actually not as realistic. Upon closer inspection, its facial features are stiff and its expression is strange. It can always be seen that it is wearing a mask. There are so many people wearing masks in this city, and there is nothing unusual about them wearing them. After looking around for a while, Lu Qian nodded with satisfaction. A few people packed their bags, returned the door number to the innkeeper, and walked out towards the center of the neighborhood. At this moment, the night was getting dark, and the shops on both sides lit lanterns of different colors. The lights blended with the moonlight and starlight, appearing hazy and illusory. On the streets paved with black stones, pedestrians walk in groups of 3 or 2, accompanying each other. A few small stalls were placed on the street, and the owners and customers were chatting happily, spitting profusely. This warm scene instantly gave Lu Qian a sense of returning to modernity, but then the wide robes and sleeves on the pedestrian's body, as well as the shimmering magical tools around his waist and back, brought his thoughts back to reality. Bai Tao happily bounced and bounced around. Every time she passed a stall, she would curiously poke her head and look around, but she was always tightly grabbed by Qin Feng. So the little girl pouted in dissatisfaction and shook Qin Feng's arm vigorously. Jiang Qingfeng didn't have time to coax her and asked Lu Qian, "Junior brother, should we go directly to the inn in the center?" Lu Qian smiled and shook his head, "No, let's go spend money first." Chapter 5. Shopping in the Market. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Since you want to spend money, you have to have money first. Lu Qian explained, in the past few days, the expenses for food, accommodation, pills, and other expenses have all been my senior sister's private money, and I don't expect it to last long. Although we want to revive the mountain gate, it also needs to be divided between public and private. These collective expenses should naturally be paid for by the public. Jiang Qingfeng was stunned for a moment, then swept left and right. Seeing no one beside him, he whispered, "Master. Junior brother, are you saying you want to use the secret treasure?" Lu Qian smiled and said, "Exactly. In the revival sect, without a spirit stone, it's just a daydream. The secret is only when used on people, and hiding without using it is just a few stones. Looking back, I changed the spirit stone, and senior sister calculated the cost of this period. I will provide it to senior sister." Such words are not at all what the former Lu Qian could say. Jiang Qingfeng couldn't help but scrutinize Lu Qian from head to toe, and it was indeed his junior brother. But why, after only a few days of hard work, his words, actions, and mental demeanor have undergone earth-shattering changes? What Lu Qian wants to take action is the spiritual crystal hidden in the secret. Lingjing is very rare and is a condensed body of linkshire mineral veins. If the amount of spiritual energy stored in it is calculated, 1 lingjing is approximately equivalent to 1,000 linkshire. But if used in the manufacturing process of refining tools, alchemy, and making talismans, a single spiritual crystal instantly produces a large amount of spiritual energy, which is better for manufacturing than 1,000 spiritual stones. Therefore, during trading, a single spiritual crystal can often be mixed with several spiritual stones. However, he did not immediately go to exchange, but found a clothing store and smiled, "Before changing the spirit stone, we need to put a new layer of leather on ourselves first." It turned out that they had been running and fighting all the way, and had already run out of laundry. The clothes of the few people were now dirty and tattered. As soon as he entered the door, Lu Qian complained to Qin Feng in a loud voice, "Damn it, I can't say I can't experience it. My master insisted that I go out. Now it's over. I didn't catch anyone and my body is dirty and smelly." Turning his head, he shouted at a few salespeople again, "What are you doing in such a daze? Take out all your best clothes, Grandpa. I'm not short of money." Originally, a few staff members in the store were hesitant to greet the 3 people who were dressed in tattered clothes. Upon hearing Lu Qian's words, they realized that it was a major customer who came to their door. They quickly approached with a smile on their faces, their tails almost shaking in the sky. After leaving the store, several people were completely refreshed. Lu Qian was dressed in a crow-blue narrow-sleeved long shirt, with a crane pattern embroidered on his chest with silver thread, making him clean and elegant. Jiang Qingfeng wore a narrow-sleeved jacket on his upper body, paired with a light blue horse-face skirt, which appeared even more beautiful and charming. Tao Tao changed into a chest-length skirt, which not only looked cute but also showed a touch of luxury. I also bought several sets of clothes and put them in storage bags. This time, 20 spirit stones were spent. Although it was Lu Qian who paid for it, Jiang Qingfeng still felt heartbroken. He felt that although the clothing was made of expensive materials and looked luxurious, it was not a magical tool and there was no need to spend so much money on it. And, isn't it too eye-catching for us to dress up like this? Senior sister, today we not only need to exchange spirit stones, but also need to spend a large amount of spirit stones. Do you think it's more suspicious to spend a lot of money with the children of the wealthy family while wandering around in the world? People rely on clothing and horses rely on saddles. When we dress like this, we can call ourselves disciples of the prestigious sect. We can trade rare items later without arousing suspicion. Of course, it's not appropriate to keep showing off the market. After buying things, we can return to the inn and change into ordinary clothes. This remark made Jiang Qingfeng nod to himself. Lu Qian asked passers-by for their location again and walked forward with the two of them. Before long, a few people had already stood in front of a 3-story small building. This building has cornices, arch of wooden architecture, lanterns, and golden plaques, which are very magnificent. The building has a large number of guests and is bustling with voices. This is the largest alchemy firm in this area. This medium-sized market has a relatively primitive business model, with various shops operating according to their own categories, both selling and acquiring businesses, without pawn shops, exchange houses, auction houses, and other shops. Therefore, in order to exchange for spirit crystals, one can only directly go to the refining, alchemy, talisman-making, other commercial firms for exchange. Among these types of businesses, alchemists are generally the ones with the strongest capital, so it is also most suitable to exchange here. Moreover, Lu Qian also needs to purchase several magical tools. So it's better to choose here, both to exchange spirit stones and flower spirit stones. Magic tools are an important means for cultivators to fight and avoid disasters, and can be considered as the second life of cultivators. Qi cultivators use magical tools, while foundation-building feathered cultivators use spiritual tools. When they reach the golden core immortal, whom everyone admires, they begin to use magical treasures to achieve everything from heaven to earth. Magic tools are divided into 3 levels. Low level, medium level, and high level, and their prices vary greatly. Low-level magic tools are generally priced at around 100 spirit stones, while medium-level magic tools can rise to 300 to 500, while high-level magic tools can even exceed 1,000 spirit stones in price. Among magic tools, defense tools are more expensive and can often reach 2 to 3 times the price of attack tools. Therefore, some Qi cultivators who are financially strapped cannot even afford to purchase a defense tool. Lu Qian and his companions searched for the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Among them, he had only entered the 5th level of Qi cultivation and became a mid-level flying sword bestowed by his master during the middle stage of Qi cultivation. Jiang Qingfeng practiced 6 levels of Qi and only had 1 medium-level pearl hairpin for attack. However, by chance, she herself obtained a medium-level jade pendant for defense. Qi cultivators engage in battles, some using spells, some using talismans, and some using tools, but ultimately the tools are simple and fast, consume less spiritual power, and have good attack and defense abilities, making them the most widely used. Whether dealing with potential enemies or for future battles, good magic tools are essential. This time, Lu Qian was prepared for massive bleeding and said that he and his senior sister would exchange their fighting abilities. Lu Qian quietly took out 3 spirit crystals from his master's ring and whispered, "Spirit crystals are still too eye-catching. With our cultivation during the Qi cultivation period, taking out 3 at once is almost the limit. If we exchange too many, it may arouse suspicion. If we go into some small shops to exchange, it may even make people envious and follow us. Let's cooperate in a while and don't show any timidity. I'll play the role of a wealthy young man, and my senior sister will play the role of an unsmiling iceberg beauty. As for Tao Tao." Looking at Jiang Baitao's eager eyes, Lu Qian chuckled and said, "Just play yourself." Speaking, he took the lead and stepped into the door with his head held high. Seeing 3 people dressed in luxurious clothes, a shop assistant had already come forward to receive them. But after looking at a few magical tools, Lu Qian looked down on them and shook his head repeatedly. The shopkeeper who had been observing for a long time quickly welcomed them and took them to the second-floor elegant seat to serve tea. Facing the shopkeeper alone, Lu Qian changed his haughty tone, and when he opened his mouth, he could see how my senior brother and master were, like a child of a great sect. The shopkeeper dared not neglect and quickly took out the high-level magic tools from the store, asking Lu Qian to take a look. Chapter 6. Selection of Magic Tools. You are listening at Novel Full Audio. Water Cold Sword, a high-level attack tool with water attributes, with a chilling aura that can freeze and damage enemies. It contains 700 spirit stones. Li Huazhu is a high-level attack tool with fire attributes. When cast, it has extremely high temperatures and can burn people's muscles and bones. It contains 900 spirit stones. Spirit Turtle Shield, a mid-level defense tool with soil and water attributes, can be enlarged or reduced, enough to shield 3 people and 1200 spirit stones. After looking at a few magical tools, Lu Qian had a rough idea in his mind. He then collapsed onto the chair and impatiently knocked on the table, saying, "Let's leave the Spirit Turtle Shield for now. I also need a high-level metal attack tool and a faster flying tool." Then he turned his head and flattered Jiang Qingfeng, saying, "Fairy, what magical tool do you want? As long as you open your golden mouth, I will immediately buy it and give it to you." The prices of these advanced magical tools had already exceeded Jiang Qingfeng's psychological expectations. Upon hearing this, she was surprised and immediately thought of her current identity as an iceberg beauty. She reached out to take a tea bowl, forced herself to take a sip calmly, and tried to make a faint tone. "There's nothing to like, there's no need to spend money. How can we do that?" Lu Qian said earnestly, "Meeting the fairy is a blessing that I will cultivate in the next few lifetimes. I must buy something today to give to the fairy as a memory." Jiang Qingfeng almost took a sip of tea and turned her head away from looking at Lu Qian, afraid of breaking her martial arts skills in just 1 second. Upon hearing Lu Qian's instructions, he said, "This fairy is the spiritual root of the water, wood, and earth 3 series. If you have any suitable high-level magical tools here, just bring them to show her. Be well behaved, the sect of the men is different. Pursuing women is a big battle." The shopkeeper waited carefully on the side, his face wrinkled with a smile. And Tao Tao was even happier, jumping up and down in the store without any hesitation. A few ordinary shop assistants were holding various snacks, carefully following along and coaxing this little girl to the heavens. Not long after, a pile of boxes with sealed talismans were picked up by the shop assistant. The shopkeeper took out the token and unlocked the talisman restrictions, introducing them one by one. White Rainbow Sword, Clear Spirit Wall, Python Whip, Shaking God Bell. After about a stick of incense, with the earnest persuasion of Lu Qian, Jiang Qingfeng reluctantly chose a Cold Mist Sword, a high-level water attribute flying sword with excellent speed. When used, the mist filled the air, blocking the sword's light and making it difficult to distinguish the direction of the sword. Quote 800 Spirit Stones. Lu Qian also picked out the flying magic weapon. It was a white jade flying boat, a high-level magic weapon with a fast escape speed. When cast, it could accommodate up to 6 people. During the Qi cultivation period, cultivators cannot directly use flying tools and can only rely on specialized flying tools. This flying boat is priced at 700 spirit stones. In addition to the previously selected defense tool, the spirit turtle shield, Lu Qian also needs to pick an attack tool and replace the previous mid-level flying sword. He is the spiritual root of gold and water, and both gold and water attributes of magical tools can bring good luck. However, his gold nature is fierce and sharp, complementing his attacking magical tools. So he picked and chose among the high-order metal artifacts, striving to find something satisfactory. Flying swords, flying hammers, flying rings, flying knives. As well as various alien weapons, when flipped over to the last box, Lu Qian let out a light sigh. It turned out that the box contained 3 shiny silver needles. This is a starlight needle, 6 inches long, with 3 pieces in a set. When attacking, it breaks through the surface with points, is very sharp, and its flying speed is extremely fast. The shopkeeper smiled all over his face. This set of 600 spirit stones. This is the cheapest high-level magical tool that Lu Qian has ever seen in this store. He raised his eyebrows and said, "What about defective products? How dare you take them out?" The shopkeeper hurriedly said, "Oh my, how dare you deceive your esteemed customers with defective products? The materials and workmanship of this starlight needle are excellent, and the cost would be 600 or 700 spirit stones. The reason why it is sold at a loss is not because of quality, as there are really no suitable people to use it." Ignoring the shopkeeper's nonsense of selling at a loss, Lu Qian picked up a silver needle and carefully observed. The needle is engraved with an ever-changing array, with an incredibly sharp tip that looks like a star under the light. The fingertips slowly approach, and a sense of sharpness can be felt 3 inches away. In terms of quality alone, it is undoubtedly top quality. Seeing that Lu Qian was quite interested, the shopkeeper didn't want to offend the distinguished guest and had to explain honestly, there were some issues with the design of this magical tool. As the distinguished guest also knows, cultivators use their divine sense to control magical tools. In the early stages of Qi cultivation, cultivators have chaotic divine sense, low spiritual power, and cannot resist objects. In the middle stage of Qi cultivation, their divine sense is unstable, and their spiritual power is limited. At most, they can only control one magical tool. In the later stage of Qi cultivation, as their divine sense becomes more proficient and their spiritual power increases, they can control 2 magical tools. Generally, cultivators choose to attack and defend one. The alchemist of the starlight needle had a wild idea and wanted to solve this constraint by allowing the cultivator to use several more magical tools. Firstly, it was refined into a needle shape, much lighter than flying swords, greatly reducing spiritual power consumption. Then, the silver needles were connected in a magic array, sensed each other, and strung together to form a set, hoping that the cultivator could control these 3 silver needles simultaneously. Oh! This alchemist is a bit overestimated. Lu Qian's surface trembled, but his heart moved. The shopkeeper poured out bitter water and said, "Isn't that right? After refining, I was dumbfounded after a try. It turned out to be a set, but it could only be shot together, retracted together, and attacked in the same place. What's the difference between this and a flying sword? If you want 3 needles to attack separately, you need to find the book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com to rotate and achieve the desired result. It requires powerful and meticulous divine control, which is not something that cultivators during the Qi cultivation period can do. Founding feathered warriors can naturally use them, but those adults have already used spiritual tools, how could they buy this set of magical tools? So this set of starlight needles has always been unpopular, and I can only sell it at a loss. Unfortunately, no cultivator has ever used it. Zunk, let's take a look at something else. We still have. He suddenly paused. I saw Lu Qian reach out and pick up 3 silver needles. With a flick of his spiritual power, the starry needles jumped and bounced, floating in mid-air. Once you have the magical and spiritual tools in your hand, as long as you are slightly familiar with them and have enough spiritual power, you can use them. Respected guest, the shopkeeper said cautiously, it's okay if you want to try it, but before that, dozens of guests have also tried it and it's of no use. He suddenly stuttered and a wooden box in his hand fell to the ground with a click. Amidst the shocked gazes of the crowd, the 3 silver needles in Lu Qian's hand trembled suddenly, then spread out like blooming flower buds, shooting out in 3 directions. Since the fusion of 2 souls, Lu Qian has been puzzled. Why has my memory become so amazing? From childhood to adulthood, every piece of information can be retrieved at any time, even if it's just hearsay, I remember it clearly. Why does one's thinking become so fast? As long as one's heart moves, various information flashes clearly and at an astonishing speed. As long as you think, your mind is like a motor, like light and electricity, you can instantly combine, reason, calculate, reconstruct various information, and draw clear conclusions. These modern things called willpower, thinking ability, and perception have all converged into one word in the world of cultivation. Divine Consciousness. Chapter 7. Returning with a full load. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Now Lu Qian can confirm that after soul fusion, his divine consciousness underwent astonishing changes, with the intensity increasing several times. And the spiritual consciousness of the cultivator will continue to increase with the growth of cultivation. Now, with a movement of divine consciousness, Lu Qian can fully control these 3 silver needles and feel the connection between them through the magic array on the needles, just like 3 fingers in one palm. Is it the precise manipulation of divine consciousness? The spiritual power of Lu Qian is transmitted, and during the dance of divine consciousness, 3 silver needles draw curves of different shapes in the air, shuttling back and forth like shooting stars. This is impossible. The shopkeeper opened his mouth wide and stared blankly as the starlight needle turned back into Lu Qian's hand from 3 directions. And Lu Qian didn't pant or tire, with an effortless appearance. Did this person hide their cultivation? Is he actually a foundation-building feathered warrior? Impossible, absolutely impossible. The shopkeeper instantly denied his conjecture. How boring is Jianji Feather to come to his shop and have fun? What is the use of magical tools when building foundations, all of which are spiritual tools? It's not about building a foundation, but it's definitely the core disciple of a large sect, possessing inherited secret techniques, which is why they can cultivate such divine consciousness. The shopkeeper quickly came up with a reasonable explanation, his demeanor becoming more humble, and his waist unconsciously bent down. Very good, this magical tool is a bit interesting, Lu Qian satisfactorily put away the starlight needle. Let's settle the accounts. Starry needle, spirit turtle shield, white jade flying boat, cold mist sword. By purchasing these magical tools, both of them have upgraded their weapons, and the combat effectiveness of this team has also increased significantly. With these, the magic tools used during the previous escape can be basically eliminated. After some calculation, the shopkeeper smiled pleasantly and said, "Respected guest, there are a total of 3,300 spirit stones. It's rare for a big customer like you to come across them. I'll give you another discount and give you 3,000 spirit stones." Lu Qian knew that under normal circumstances, there was still room for further bargaining. Unfortunately, as a disciple of a prestigious sect who was not lacking in money, he didn't say much about it. He snorted and took out 2 spirit crystals, saying, "I didn't bring so many spirit stones. Before leaving, my senior brother said that 1 piece of spirit crystal can be used to pay for 1,500 spirit stones. So use this item to pay the bill." The shopkeeper took it carefully and became even more determined in his judgment of Lu Qian's identity. A disciple who practices qi can take out the spiritual crystal to pay the bill, and such a sect is not something one can speculate on. He carefully identified the spiritual crystal in his palm, which was visible in every inch. The spiritual energy in his core condensed into a solid crystal, which was undoubtedly genuine. He showed a pleasing smile again and cautiously said, "Zunk has been living in Xianxia for a long time, and I'm afraid he may not be aware of it. The current exchange price is not so high. At most, I can only offer Zunk a price of 11,000, no, 1,200 spirit stones. So there's still 600 spirit stones left, I don't know." Lu Qian impatiently waved his hand, then took out another spirit crystal and threw it to the shopkeeper, saying, "Okay, it's so troublesome. We'll pay the price you said." The shopkeeper opened his eyes wide and hurriedly caught it, quickly taking it into his arms and instructing the clerk to prepare the change. After a while, the salesperson came back with a small storage bag and a full and enjoyable peach. "Zunk, this is 600 spirit stones." The shopkeeper respectfully handed the entire storage bag to Lu Qian, and even the bag was given to him. "Do you want to order it?" "Don't bother, I'm sorry you dare not play with me." Lu Qian casually took the storage bag and put it in his arms, then turned to Jiang Qingfeng with a shy face and said, "Fairy, it's getting late too. Let's go back to the inn and rest earlier." Jiang Qingfeng was both angry and funny, trying to resist the urge to slap him. He let out a cold snort and pulled Bai Tao up before leaving. Lu Qian followed closely behind with a small jog, and spread sweet words as if he didn't want any money. The shopkeeper quickly bid farewell and wanted to inquire about Lu Qian's apprenticeship on the way, but was fooled by Lu Qian's beating. The shopkeeper dared not ask too many questions and respectfully escorted the three people to the back door. "You have a heart. All right, I'll introduce you to a few more big customers next time." Lu Qian nodded casually and left with the green maple and white peach amidst the innkeeper's gratitude. Turning a street corner, there was no one around. Lu Qian straightened his back and let out a long sigh of relief. "It's really exhausting." Jiang Qingfeng gave him a white eye and said, "I think my junior brother enjoys it and plays around with them." "How could that be? I'm a person with injuries on my body," Lu Qian exclaimed in frustration. He originally wanted to buy some pills, but his body has not fully recovered yet. After these few hours, he feels very tired, and it seems that tonight is too late. "Does the wound still hurt?" Jiang Qingfeng became a little nervous. Along the way, Lu Qian's performance made her forget about his injuries. Bai Tao grabs Lu Qian's hand and blinks, taking out a string of crystal tomatoes on sticks from the storage bag. "Brother, please eat tomatoes on sticks. It won't hurt." "No problem," Lu Qian shook his head with a smile. "It seems that not only me and senior sister have gained something today, but Tao Tao has also gained a lot from eating and taking. It's just that my body is a bit tired. It's better to go to the inn to rest earlier." Upon hearing this, Jiang Qingfeng remembered his role. Playing just now, his face burning hot, and he spat, "Dang Tuzi. Let's go, Tao Tao, we won't play with him anymore. How could I become a disciple?" Lu Qian followed them pitifully. "Senior sister, please walk slowly. I'm a wounded soldier and can't walk fast anymore." After a burst of laughter, a few people arrived at a large inn in the center of the neighborhood. Lu Qian opened 2 upper rooms and spent 10 spiritual stones at the book garden www.zhaozuiyuan.com, which moved Jiang Qingfeng's heart. A few people entered Lu Qian's room, and after setting up the silent talisman, she hesitated for a moment before finally speaking up. "Junior brother, you are the leader. I shouldn't have said more. But today, thousands of spirit stones have already been spent in one night, so it's probably not appropriate to throw them so recklessly. We have lost the mountain gate and haven't made any progress, so we must not sit idly by." Facing Jiang Qingfeng's concerned gaze, Lu Qian pondered for a moment and said, "I'll give my senior sister some information. In our Yunshan inheritance secret collection, there are a total of 20 spiritual crystals. The rest are various martial arts secret books collected by the Yunshan sect for 300 years, as well as a fragment of the founder of the sect, Yeyang. Besides, there is nothing else. I mentioned earlier that there are spiritual stones, spiritual pills, and spiritual artifacts, but I was just deceiving those two people. What? Jiang Qingfeng exclaimed in surprise, this is too. It's too little, isn't it? That's all the secrets accumulated by the Yunshan sect over 300 years. Lu Qian shook his head. I thought the same at first, but later I understood. This is the leader's ring representing inheritance, not the sect's treasure trove. A small portion of Lingshire's savings, most of which are working capital, are used for the sect's food, clothing, and expansion of production. And this small portion of the savings funds is usually used in the treasure trove. Lingdan requires spiritual energy and warm nourishment. Most of it is stored in the sect's alchemy room, and a small portion is stored in the leader's elder's personal storage bag. Spiritual weapons are all personal weapons of the sect elders. How could they be hidden in the ring instead of being used? Only the martial arts secrets have been accumulated for hundreds of years, and as the foundation of the sect's inheritance, they are collected in the sect leader's ring. As for the fragments of the founder's magic treasures, they are only used as a commemoration. These 20 spirit crystals are the only emergency supplies in the ring. Oh, there are only 17 now. Chapter 8. Unexpected Encounters. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Seeing that Lu Qian spoke lightly, Jiang Qingfeng became somewhat anxious and said, since that's the case, we shouldn't buy so many things today. The revival of the sect is a long and arduous task, and all these savings need to be spent on the blade. Senior sister, now it's all about spending money on the blade. Lu Qian said seriously, I've said before that hiding flowers on people is the secret, and hiding them is not just a stone. Now we're lost in the front, and there are pursuers behind us. If we don't lift ourselves up, how can we bear the heavy responsibility of revitalizing the sect? If we die before we win the battle, no matter how many spirit stones we save, we'll all become enemies. This statement made Jiang Qingfeng unable to refute, so she nodded and said, okay, as long as junior brother has a plan. Lu Qian smiled and said, the spirit stone is earned, not saved. It has enhanced our strength, so I naturally have a way to double the spirit stone and return it to my hands. Senior sister, feel free to rest assured. This statement was full of confidence, which made Jiang Qingfeng instinctively choose to believe. Noticing Jiang Qingfeng's inexplicable gaze, Lu Qian couldn't help but ask, Senior sister, why are you looking at me with that kind of gaze? Jiang Qingfeng shook his head and said, Junior brother, you have really changed completely. You always surprise me. Lu Qian chuckled and said, after walking between life and death, I naturally grew a lot. In short, such a change is a good thing, isn't it? Jiang Qingfeng nodded, her beautiful eyes streaming with anticipation. It's a good thing. I hope that in the hands of my junior brother, the Yunshan sect can really rebuild the mountain gate and prosper again. There was nothing to say overnight. For the next few days, Lu Qian stayed at the inn, recuperating from his injuries while practicing Starlight Needle and Spirit Turtle Shield. In addition to the increasingly sophisticated manipulation of divine consciousness and the smooth operation of the Starlight Needle, he also explored the characteristics of the Spirit Turtle Shield. Jiang Qingfeng's jade pendant can trigger an oval-shaped light shield, which can only protect itself but can withstand attacks from all angles. And although this turtle shield can be enlarged or shrunk, and can cover up to 3 people, it can only defend against attacks from one side. However, its defense is stronger than the jade pendant light shield, and it can be considered that each has its own strengths. After working hard for 5 days, Lu Qian's injuries were completely healed and his vitality was abundant. Lian Xiu has also made slight progress in cultivation, and it is not far from practicing the 6th level of Qi, which is in line with the saying, not breaking, not standing. At the same time, Lu Qian also took the time to roughly sort out the Yunshan sect's martial arts classics in the leader's ring, and roughly divide the inheritance of these 300 years into 4 types. The first type is to cultivate a method. From Qi cultivation, foundation building, to the golden elixir, there are over 10 Qi cultivation techniques suitable for various spiritual roots. There are 4 types of foundation building techniques, and the only one that can achieve the golden elixir is the one practiced by the founder of the sect, Yeyangzhenren. This is the hidden cloud classic that Lu Qian is currently practicing. The second type is the method of struggle. There are nearly 100 types of spells with various attributes and categories, mainly for attack, defense, and other types, all of which are ordinary goods. There is only one kind of wind, shadow, cloud body, which is a unique secret technique of the Yunshan sect, but it requires building a foundation to cultivate, and now we can only watch it. The third type is to inherit skills. This should have included making talismans, refining weapons, and alchemy, but after the unexpected fall of the founder of the Yunshan sect, he quickly became a small family, with only some simple talismanship making and alchemy methods during the Qi cultivation period, and no alchemy methods. In addition, there are some cultivation methods for spiritual plants and medicinal herbs. Lu Qian remembers that in the past, the income of the Yunshan sect mainly came from the spiritual plant garden and spiritual medicine garden of the sect. The fourth type is reflection and comprehension. This section is rich in content and diverse. There are cultivation experiences, travel experiences, and even life insights from past leaders, elders, and some core disciples. These are actually quite helpful for cultivation. If you can read them carefully, you will definitely be able to avoid many detours on the path of cultivation. Unfortunately, you don't have much time now. In a few days, Jiang Qingfeng also seized the time and led Jiang Baitao to complete the learning of introductory techniques. Now, this little girl is able to run Zhou Tian alone, starting a layer of Qi cultivation and officially becoming a Qi cultivator. Since they have completed their cultivation, according to the original plan, it is time for the 3 of them to leave Blackstone Square. This morning, Lu Qian and Qingfeng Baitao changed into ordinary clothes, put on new human skin masks, and went out together to prepare some additional supplies such as pills and talismans. When they were ready, they set off. Now this inn is located in the center of the neighborhood, and not far from the entrance is the square of the neighborhood. These days, the 3 of them have been living in seclusion and have not paid attention to this square. Today, as I passed by, I saw a dense crowd on the square, seemingly watching something. The center of the crowd occasionally erupted with cheers. Jiang Baitao was extremely curious and took her sister's hand to squeeze into the crowd to see what was going on. Without being in a hurry to purchase supplies, Lu Qian followed suit and entered. There was a black stone arena in the arena, with a stone tablet standing in front of it. Above the arena, 2 people were engaged in a fierce battle. However, Lu Qian was not in a hurry to watch the struggle in the field, but leaned over to look at the words on the stone tablet. Originally, this arena was established by the local market for 2 purposes. One is for monks to compete with each other. Because private fights are strictly prohibited in the neighborhood, if 2 cultivators clash and don't like each other, they must fight each other. Either they leave the neighborhood to resolve the conflict on their own, or they can sign a contract on this arena and see the difference under the notarization of the neighborhood deacon. The other type is a boxing competition. Zhaozhuyuan.com is set up by the local market to challenge the challenge master. Past cultivators can challenge the challenge master, and the registration fee is 100 spirit stones. Winning will result in a reward of 500 spirit stones. Immortal, do you want to bet? A servant-dressed mortal approached and asked, with a humble smile on his face. 10 spirit stones are worth it, and the odds for this round are. Are there any opening bets here? Lu Qian waved his hand to refuse, and after a moment of contemplation, he understood Feng Shi's plan. Although it may seem like a lucrative competition, it is actually just a bait that attracts past cultivators to challenge. This 1 to 4 layers of Qi cultivation is called the initial stage of Qi cultivation. The practice of Qi from 5 to 7 layers is called the middle stage. The 8th to 10th floors are known as the later stage. The perfect cultivation of Qi is achieved when the 10th level is fully cultivated and the spiritual energy is well-rounded. It is possible to break into the foundation building environment at any time. The rule of the challenge is that in the early stage of Qi cultivation, cultivators challenge the champion in the early stage of Qi cultivation, and so on. On the one hand, the arena champions established by the local authorities must have high cultivation and strong strength. In the early stage of Qi cultivation, there must be 4 layers of Qi cultivation, in the middle stage, there must be 7 layers of Qi cultivation, and in the later stage, there must be 10 layers of Qi cultivation. The experience of fighting with others is definitely very rich, and it is not so easy to succeed in the arena. On the other hand, Fengshe is still betting on the opening of the market off the exchange, and even if it encounters a strong challenger, the odds can be adjusted at any time. At first glance, it's basically a steady profit without any loss, it's really a good business. As he was admiring, suddenly his clothes were tugged at by Jiang Qingfeng. Lu Qian couldn't help but turn his head and heard Qingfeng anxiously say in his ear, "Junior brother. It's senior brother Tan. The challenger on the field is senior brother Tan." Upon hearing this, Lu Qian was startled and quickly looked towards the field, only to see a familiar figure struggling to resist. And across from him, the tall and powerful challenger was waving a giant sword half the size of a door panel, smashing it at him head to head. Chapter 9. Shame and Humiliation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The outcome in the arena was clear, and several unruly cultivators shouted, "I want to bet, I want to buy the champion to win." The mortal servant kept bowing and apologizing, "Fairies, I'm really sorry. The betting time has passed and we can't place the bet now. Please hurry up for the next round." A cultivator next to him sneered, "Is it your first time playing? Now that you're destined to win or lose, I'll bet on you. Will the banker still make money? Hey, I thought this challenge was also about practicing Qi at the 7th level. If I had a chance to win, I even bought him 50 spirit stones." Another cultivator's face was ugly, "I didn't expect he was also a useless item. This is just a cup of tea and his martial arts are not good, I'm sorry." Lu Qian didn't have time to pay attention to these words, his gaze fixed on the challenger in the field. That's right, this figure, this magical tool, this magic technique, is senior brother Tan Hong. If Tan Hong were here, then Lu Qian and Jiang Qingfeng's gaze would simultaneously focus on a female cultivator below. The woman was dressed in coarse cloth and wore a peony bun, with a slightly sturdy figure. Seeing that the situation in the field was unfavorable to Tan Hong, even wearing a mask, it was difficult to conceal her anxious expression. Sure enough, senior sister Zhang Lu is also here. Tan Hong and Zhang Lemei are both disciples of the Yunshan sect, who have been in the school for over 50 years. The two initially became a Taoist couple, but later became husband and wife. They are all 4 spiritual roots with lower qualifications, but they work hard in cultivation. Before the destruction of the mountain gate, Tan Hong practiced Qi at the 7th level, and Zhang Lemei was not far from the 7th level. Tan Hong has a persistent personality and is reticent. But Zhang Lemei has a fiery personality, and even if she is unreasonable, she will stir up 3 points. I don't know how these two people with different personalities got together. After the sect was destroyed, the two originally fled with Lu Qian, but Lu Qian's careless behavior was unbearable, so the two left the team and started making a living on their own. But I didn't expect to meet them again in this city today. During his contemplation, Jiang Qingfeng happily stepped forward and grabbed Zhang Lemei's hand, saying, "Senior sister Zhang. It's really great if you're all fine." Zhang Lemei was taken aback. With a mask covering her face, she didn't immediately recognize the person based solely on her voice and figure. But the next moment, she saw Jiang Baitao by Jiang Qingfeng's side, and suddenly reacted with surprise. Tao Tao. Qingfeng. Why are you here? Lu Qian also walked forward and bowed. I have seen senior sister Zhang. Zhang Lemay was stunned for a moment, and immediately recognized the person. Her eyebrows turned upside down and she cursed with her hips crossed. Pooh. Today is really unlucky. How could I have met you again, a troublemaker? Do you still have the face to appear in front of me? If it weren't for saving you, senior brother, you and the others wouldn't have died. Now you are still alive and kicking around, really a disaster left over for thousands of years. As soon as he came up, he was scolded angrily, but Lu Qian showed no signs of anger. He said in a deep voice, senior sister scolded me, right? It's because I don't respect you, and I often worry about your safety. Today, seeing that senior sister's demeanor is still the same, I can finally feel a little more at ease. You don't need to worry. I'm afraid the more you worry, the faster we'll die. Although she vaguely felt that Lu Qian was a bit strange in front of her, Zhang Lemay still showed no mercy. She turned her head and grabbed Jiang Qingfeng again. Qingfeng, how dare you stay with him all this time? I'll tell you, don't look at how handsome he is, and you'll be fooled by this stinky skin. If you hang out with him again, you won't even know if he'll pit you to death one day. Jiang Qingfeng blushed and said, senior sister, it's not like this. Junior brother has already improved. It's better now. What about deceiving ghosts? When old Tan and I ran away, there were still senior sister Qi and junior brother Yu in the team, right? Where are they now? Jiang Qingfeng's expression darkened. During the subsequent escape, Qi's senior sister was killed by the enemy, and Yu junior brother couldn't bear Lu Qian either. He left alone one night. Zhang Lemay let out a snort of anger and was about to speak when she heard a burst of exclamation from around. She was startled and hurriedly looked towards the field. I saw the champion wielding a giant sword and lifting it high, knocking Tan Hong's flying sword into the air and smashing it heavily at him. Tan Hong gritted his teeth and rolled on the spot, dodging in an extremely awkward position. With a loud roar, even the arena was cut open with a crack. Old Tan! Zhang Lemay exclaimed in surprise. Tan Hong reluctantly turned over and stood up, reaching out for a gesture. His flying sword had just risen, twisted, and was suddenly fanned out by the strong man. A strong man who gains power does not spare others, but also wields a sword. The strength of the épée was astonishing, but at a slower speed. Tan Hong seized the opportunity and flashed to the side. With a piercing sound, the heavy sword fell against Tan Hong's left arm, tearing apart his clothes and wiping off a large piece of flesh, bleeding profusely. Zhang Lemay exclaimed anxiously, give up. Stop fighting. Let's not use the spirit stone. But Tan Hong remained silent, clenching his injured arm and glaring unwillingly at the strong man in front of him. He has already stood on the edge of the arena, and if he takes another step back, he will fall. My cultivation is not very good, I can dodge quite quickly. The strong man, leaning on his giant sword, looked down at Tan Hong from a high position. Give up, you inexperienced rural cultivators also want to win against me. Tan Hong gasped for breath and angrily said, I'm not some mediocre casual cultivator. The strong man waved his hand and said nonchalantly, it's embarrassing to come here for the sake of 500 spirit stones. You're still holding your tongue here, even if you have a sect, what would happen? I think it's just a garbage sect. As soon as he said this, Lu Qian's heart sank and a wave of anger surged up his chest. Jiang Qingfeng and Zhang Lemay gritted their teeth and searched for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, breathing heavily. And Tan Hong's eyes instantly turned red, he let out a loud roar, and he rushed towards the strong man barehanded. The strong man sneered and kicked Tan Hong heavily in the chest, kicking him off the arena. Tan Hong spat out a mouthful of blood and struggled to get up, still fighting against the strong man. Zhang Lemay hugged him tightly and screamed, "Old Tan! Don't go! Qing Feng! Do you still have healing pills there?" Tan Hong stared at the strong man with blood in his mouth and shouted vaguely, "Humiliate my sect, I'll fight with you." The strong man crouched on the edge of the arena like watching a play and sneered, "It's quite backbone, but unfortunately, the garbage sect is the garbage sect." Suddenly, a twinkling of a star flashed by. The strong man only felt a flash in front of him, a silver light piercing his eye. At this moment, he was completely unprepared and let out a scream of fear. His upper body leaned back heavily, his squatting posture unstable, and he suddenly fell to the ground. The strong man scrambled up and saw a 6-inch-long silver needle quietly suspended in the air. "What kind of person?" the strong man shouted angrily, "assault me? Don't understand the rules. You come out. I'll chop you into pieces." The silver needle trembled and flew back into the crowd. Following that trajectory, the onlookers slowly separated, and Lu Qian walked out with a calm face. "Junior brother." Qing Feng regained his senses and quickly reached out to pull, "Let me go. This person is practicing qi at the 7th level, and you are not his opponent." Lu Qian pushed away her hand and said, "Senior sister, please help me hand over 100 spirit stones." He walked step by step onto the arena and said coldly to the strong man, "I naturally know the rules of the arena. If I really sneak an attack, your move will be gone just now. I will come to the arena, and even if I win, I don't want those 500 spirit stones. But you must apologize to my senior brother and my sect." Chapter 10. Facing Strong Enemies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As if he had heard a big joke, the strong man burst out laughing with his stomach in his arms and slapped his thigh hard, saying, "My mother, I thought it was a small one, an old one, but I didn't expect it to be a small one, a smaller one. Ha ha ha. With you, you still want to win over me and apologize." The spiritual awareness of cultivators during the Qi cultivation period is not strong enough to accurately judge their cultivation. But the strong man already felt that Lu Qian's cultivation was much worse than his own. He laughed enough, waved his hand, and grabbed the exaggerated giant sword again. "I'll teach you to be good. Later, you'll kneel down and beg for mercy for the master. I promise not to break your limbs, okay?" The onlookers began to cheer, and Jiang Qingfeng heard the mortal servant shouting loudly in the crowd, "Open! Open! The challenger is losing 1 by 1, and the challenger is losing 10. Betting 10 spirit stones starts with a maximum of 100 spirit stones." A cultivator pursed his lips and said, "This time even the upper limit has been set. If you bet on the champion, you can only win 10 spirit stones at most. It's really stingy." The companion beside him shouted at the top of his throat, "I'll send you the spirit stone. Are you still not satisfied? If you have it, it's good. Come on, I'll bet 100 on the champion to win." Jiang Qingfeng was furious and wished he could strike them with a sword. Bai Tao didn't quite understand, only knowing that Lu Qian was going to fight someone. She was so anxious that she shouted, "My brother will win. My brother will definitely win." But her childish voice was drowned in the sound of betting, not even a ripple stirred up. Tan Hong took the pill and looked at Lu Qian, who suddenly appeared, very surprised. Zhang Lemay clenched her hands but didn't spare anyone. With such a low cultivation, even old Tan can't do it. What kind of hero should he show off? Just give up quickly. In the presence of Lu Qian, these derogatory comments were like a gentle breeze brushing over the hill, leaving no trace in his heart. At the moment he stood on the arena, he only had one opponent in his eyes. Lu Qian is not someone who is impulsive. This strong man's insult, although infuriating, always filled him with reason. He knew where it was and rashly caught the attention of a large number of cultivators, which was very dangerous for their situation. He can also carefully judge the strength gap between himself and his opponent, knowing that this battle is very dangerous, and his chances of winning are only 10%. If it weren't for Jiang Qingfeng, Jiang Baitao, and Tan Hong and Zhang Lemei, he would definitely choose to endure. It's just a few words, why bother? A great man can endure the unbearable things of the world, so he can do things that the world cannot do. But now he is accompanied by Green Maple and White Peach, as well as the reunited couple Tan Hong and Zhang Lemei. Can they have their own rationality? This kind of insult makes everyone furious and united, which is an opportunity to regain their hearts. If he chooses to swallow his pride at this moment, the team will once again fall apart, and Jiang Qingfeng, who has finally established confidence in him, will also be disheartened. At that time, he will never have a chance to recover. You can only choose one battle. This arena is large for mortals, but small for cultivators, as magical tools can instantly hit opponents. Facing the enemy in front of you, to win, you only have one chance, and you need to maximize your advantages. Lu Qian looked at the strong man with disdain and said, "I've played several games before. I think you're exhausted enough, right? If I don't win, your apology won't be sincere. So, I'll give you half an hour to rest and then win against you. How about that?" The strong man thought that something was wrong with his ears, and his face suddenly collapsed. Anyone could hear the anger in his voice. Well, a little dog, how dare you be so blunt? I don't even need half a cup of tea to deal with you. Need a rest? I changed my mind, and I will twist your hands and feet into fried dough twists. As a judge in the later stage of Qi cultivation, a cultivator lazily shouted below the arena competition must not harm people's lives. After one side admits defeat, they cannot continue to attack. If they fall off the arena, they are also considered lost. Do you understand? Lu Qian remained non-committal, and the strong man showed a cruel smile. Start. A twinkle of starlight, Lu Qian's attack. A little silver light arrived in an instant, piercing fiercely into the strong man's eyeball. So fast. The strong man was also taken aback. He vomited his spiritual power and turned his elbow. With an agility that was not commensurate with his volume, the giant sword quickly spun and with a ding sound, flew the silver needle away. Be careful, junior brother. His sword is strange. Tan Hong suddenly shouted from the audience. Lu Qian nodded. Just now, when he saw the strong man fighting against Tan Hong, he could tell that this huge sword was powerful and heavy. The collision between the starlight needle and the giant sword can also feel the tremendous power coming from above. But this strong man is only practicing the 7th layer of Qi, how could he swing so flexibly? I think that sword must be a sophisticated high-level magical tool, as light as a feather in the master's hand, and as heavy as 1,000 pounds when smashed at the enemy. He waved his hand and the silver needle flashed, changing its angle to stab the strong man's heart. The strong man snorted coldly, swung his sword horizontally, and once again fanned the silver needle away. Taking this opportunity, the strong man turned his defense into an attack, and the giant sword flew out of his hand, cutting towards Lu Qian. In an instant, Lu Qian felt the sudden jumping of the mud ball palace and the surge of divine consciousness, like a spider web, casting a huge sword into the air. Under the influence of divine consciousness, everything around him became particularly slow, and the flight trajectory of the giant sword vividly appeared in his mind. Without hesitation, Lu Qian turned sideways and, amidst the screams of everyone below, the giant sword almost fell against his nose. But he didn't look at it, pinching the formula in his hand, and the starry needle flashed towards the strong man's throat. Okay. Jiang Qingfeng shouted. The strong man, however, was cold and indifferent. He had a change in the magic technique in his hand, and even disconnected the control of the giant sword. In the next moment, the defensive tool around his waist shook, and a defensive light shield rose in front of him, bouncing the starlight needle away. And just as the starlight needle was bounced open, the strong man eliminated his defense shield, and then used his magic trick to control the giant sword. The giant sword flipped horizontally, creating an arc and cutting towards Lu Qian again. The audience was amazed. Between the electric light and fire stones, the divine sense disconnects control of the giant sword, connects the defense tool, then disconnects the defense tool, and reconnects the giant sword. With this divine sense operation, the strong man actually bypassed the barriers in the middle stage of Qi cultivation, almost achieving the effect of using two magical tools at the same time. Tan Hong gritted his teeth and used this trick again. At first, he was evenly matched with the strong man, but after this move, the rhythm was completely mastered by the strong man, so he ultimately lost. Jiang Qingfeng exclaimed loudly, "Junior brother." The strong man smiled proudly, and at this moment, the silver needle was bounced high by him. Lu Qian had no defense in front of him and could only forcefully strike a sword. So far, which middle stage of Qi cultivation can deal with this move? Apologize. Just a joke, let him end it. The strong man sneered at Lu Qian, wanting to see his panicked expression. But I only saw a pair of eyes with no waves in ancient times. He couldn't help but let out a thud in his heart. The next moment, I saw the spiritual light floating in front of Lu Qian, and with a loud bang, a shield blocked in front of the giant sword.